Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of BrainScratch Searchlight. I'm your host, John Lorden. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's case really has me scratching my brain. I have to tell you, if the outcome of today's case is true, it's going to undo a previous episode of Case Cracked that I did, and it will also make a new episode of Case Cracked for itself. This is a very different one for Searchlight, and let's just go ahead and jump right into the case of Jennifer Lee Klein. And we're going to start at the Charley Project. Here we see a picture of Jennifer circa 1974. This is an older case, typically not the type of case I would cover because there's so little information out there about it, but when you see all the recent developments, you're going to see why we're diving into this one. Jennifer has been missing since May 25th, 1974 from Moab, Utah. She is endangered missing. Her date of birth is May 14th, 1971. She was 3 years old at the time that she went missing. 3'2", 35 pounds. Distinguishing characteristics: she's a Caucasian female, light brown hair, blue eyes. Jennifer has a cowlick on the right side of her forehead and a birthmark somewhere on her body, possibly on the left side of her abdomen. She has a mole in front of her right ear, and her navel protrudes. Her nickname is Jenny. For clothing description, she apparently was wearing a swimsuit when she went missing. And could that be a clue into what happened to her? Let's read the details of the disappearance here. Jennifer was last seen while she and her family were camping at a campground approximately 10 miles north of Moab, Utah. Jennifer was playing in the sand by the river with her parents and older brother when her father went back to their camper to retrieve something. There was a dog fight while he was gone, and everyone was watching the dogs. While Jennifer's mother and brother were distracted, the child disappeared. Jennifer has never been heard from again. Her parents cannot recall anyone at the campground being interviewed about her disappearance. Many of the guests were transients who could not be found later. There was an old car parked between Jennifer's camper and the river at the time Jennifer disappeared. It is unknown if the vehicle had anything to do with her disappearance. It's possible that Jennifer fell into the nearby Colorado River and drowned, but her body has never been recovered. Her case remains unsolved. And that's just, when I read that she was wearing a swimsuit, it makes me wonder, you're talking about a 3-year-old here. While everyone's back was turned, could she have made a break for the water to jump in and to try to swim in the Colorado and then got carried away possibly? I don't know. But that's kind of the overview on her disappearance. NamUs does have a profile on her. Interestingly, NCMEC doesn't, but just echoing all the same information. Her age now would be approximately 46 years old. We get the same information: white female, 38 inches tall, 35 pounds. Circumstances, I think we get just, let's see. Jennifer was camping with her family in Moab. The adults were distracted because of a dogfight, and Jennifer went missing. It's believed that she fell in the river, but not confirmed. Clothing and accessories, we at least get a color, light blue swimsuit, so we get just a little more detail there. For physical characteristics, they also note the cowlick on the right side of her forehead, the birthmark on her abdomen, mole in front of her right ear, and a protruding belly button. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot of information for images. There's pretty much just this one picture of her that you can find. I haven't found any other pictures outside of this one of her. So, where do we go from this case? We've already pretty much reviewed everything that there is out there on this case, and this is typically why I won't always cover cases this old. They're just very, very difficult to review. I want you guys to remember to a Searchlight episode I did. We made a donation, so we can see here. There we go. It was 10 months ago. And I did an episode where I pointed out this lady. Her name is Nancy Schaefer. She is with an organization called Missing in America. She basically donates her own time to try to help in these missing person cases. She was going through a rough spell. If I remember correctly, I think that she might have lost her home around this time. So I was asking people to help donate to her cause. And on behalf of myself and my amazing Patreon supporters, we did make a donation here. Well, Missing in America is still going strong, and here we see a Facebook post from them. DNA results positive. Michele Hooper is Jennifer Klein. Missing in America founder Nancy Schaefer breaks 3 missing person cases wide open. Jennifer Klein, Etan Patz, and Kurt Newton. Now, if you remember right, Etan is a case that we featured on Case Cracked because a man is sitting in jail for murdering Etan. Now, Etan's body has never been found. The man says that he disposed of the body in the trash. So it's a bit of a reasonable explanation why the body hasn't been found. But according to some information we're going to see here, Michele Hooper is claiming that Etan is actually still alive. I know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where this case is going to go, guys, quite honestly. But I did look into web sleuths. I could see that they were talking about the case specifically of Jennifer Klein. And here, this is kind of a starter page on the case. It just has the basics. And then it says you can discuss her case here. Well, as of today, when I'm filming this is actually being filmed on Tuesday, July 18th. This link has been locked up. You can't get to it even if you have a web sleuth's login ID. I was able to pull up a cached version of just the first page of this discussion. And essentially, it is a lot of people debating, is this woman really Jennifer or not? Or is this potentially some type of hoax going on? And people are really on the fence about it. And after we go through my details on the videos here, I think you'll see why people are kind of undecided. Outside of this, there is a Reddit thread that is still accessible. Here we see a post from 22 hours ago. Well, today her DNA test results came back, and yes, indeed, she is Jennifer Lee Klein. The news was breaking on Facebook Live with the group Missing in America, so crazy. Hopefully, Etan Patz will come forward, and he too is missing as a child, but alive and well, according to Michele Hooper, aka Jennifer Klein. Kurt Newton, who too was kidnapped and raised with Michele and Etan, has died of an accidental overdose about 4 days ago. This is a story you would want to follow. And once again, the conversation is basically going one of two ways. There's people that have watched the videos and are trying to be human lie detectors and say, well, I believe her, or no, I don't really believe her. And I wanted to try to do something a little different with the case. So I went through every minute of all of the videos again. And I'd actually heard about this case a month ago when the first video was posted, and I watched the whole video back then. I wasn't really compelled to report it to you guys because I had extremely hard suspicions to get around. But now that we're getting to this point where supposedly a DNA test has confirmed her identity, I thought it was time to break it to you guys, because either we're looking at a huge news story that has yet to break, like it's literally going to break in the next day or two, or we're looking at a giant social media car crash that's about to happen. And quite honestly, I'm not sure which. So with that being said, let's take a look at video number 1 here. Now, of course, we're not going to play through or watch the whole video. It is over an hour long. But I did go through it and made some notes about some key moments in it. So let's talk about those. At 6:41, she starts referring to Etan Patz. However, something that a lot of people are very critical of is whenever Michele, or Jennifer, depending on if you believe her story, whenever Michele refers to Etan, she calls him Ethan. And what's really hard for me personally about this, the story here is that she was in a car crash and all of a sudden she started having access to repressed memories, that somehow her abductors had kidnapped her and brainwashed her and got her to the point where she wasn't really remembering that she was Jennifer. But this car crash kind of broke it all loose, and then she was able to remember everything. And you're talking about a 3-year-old remembering pretty specific detail. Personally, I know people are different. I know that there are some people that have amazing memory recollection from their early childhood. I'm not one of those people. My memory recall is terrible. I can't tell you if I remember one single thing from being 3 years old. I don't think I do. But she says that she does. She remembers the abduction event, and then she starts talking about how she was there for the following abduction of Etan, or Etan as she refers to him, basically through all of these videos. I don't think she ever corrects that, as well as Kurt. And what's interesting about her not correcting it is she recalls a specific conversation that she had with Etan at one point where she was trying to give him a new name, and he was telling her, no, my name is Ethan. But his name isn't Ethan. And if she's truly recalling that, why is he getting his own name wrong? I mean, Etan was 6 when he was abducted. It's a bit different to try to condition a 3-year-old and to get them to forget their early life. But a 6-year-old, I would think, is quite a bit more difficult. Outside of that, she also says that Etan does not believe her story, that the new person that she says Etan is doesn't believe her at all, thinks that she's basically a whack job, and does not believe that he is Etan Patz. So I don't know, guys. Really, really interesting. Kurt Newton is actually a case that I was not familiar with before hearing about this. I looked into it. It is another disappearance of a child that happens at a park. Let me bring up the Charley Project article on that real quick, just so you can see a photo of him. And let's just get some of the details here. He was 4 years old when he went missing, September 1st of 1975. Caucasian male, blonde hair, blue eyes. He was wearing a navy blue jacket with baseball emblems, a navy blue sweatshirt, a red jersey, red and black speckled corduroy pants, mismatched white socks, and dark brown high-top shoes. He was last seen at the remote Natanis Point campground in Chain of Ponds, Maine, 6 miles from the Canadian border. He was camping with his parents, his older sister, and 3 other family members. Kurt was riding his big wheel tricycle near the family's campsite when he disappeared between 10 and 10:30 a.m., and he has never been heard from again. That same morning, his tricycle was found at a dump site 0.8 of a mile from his family's campsite. Now, she claims that he was also abducted and that they were basically raised as almost like adopted siblings. She also states that the people that were raising them would frequently leave them at home alone. I'm not sure why none of the children didn't try to flee or try to get help. If they were being left at home alone for these periods of time. She describes it as they became almost like street children, and they met up with other street children, and that was kind of a platonic family that all took care of themselves. So I don't know, really, really strange. Another interesting point that she makes in the first video is she has a very, very clear recollection of the Etan kidnapping, and she says that he was drinking orange soda, that she'll never forget it. He had a bottle of orange soda. Now, if you know about that case at all, or if you've watched the previous case Cracked on it, there are several people that talk about the fact that Etan was planning on buying a Coca-Cola, specifically an ice-cold Coca-Cola. He was going to use $1 that he had just earned the day before working with a neighbor. He was going to buy it on the way to school because he wanted to have it with his lunch. Why she would remember it as an orange soda, I don't know. Did he potentially change his mind and get something else? The only problem I have with that is I believe that information from the store clerk is also that Etan had a Coca-Cola as well. So I don't know why we have a discrepancy there, but we do, outside of the fact that she thinks that his name is Etan. Now, she did provide some pictures. Let me bring these up for you. She provided some pictures to Nancy. Here is the one of supposedly Kurt. This is the picture on the left that was provided by Michele. And then on the right, we have a photo that we know is actually of Kurt. And I have to admit, it's somewhat compelling. It's kind of hard to tell because this picture is bloomed out a little bit and you don't get a lot of facial features when the contrast goes like that. But I think it's compelling enough to look at and to consider. Outside of that, she also has a picture provided by Michele, and then she's putting that next to a age progression of Etan. And I'm not sure that comparing an age progression is the best thing because age progressions are basically artistic interpretations. But once again, somewhat compelling. Outside of that, there is also a photo that Michele provided of herself when she was very young here. And if we take a look at that next to the photo of Jennifer, it's enough to look into. I'm certainly, I'm not discounting any of that by any means. I think that there is a close enough resemblance here that if this woman was saying, hey, that's me, or I think that's me, and I need a DNA test, I think the authorities should look into that. Now, according to the story that she tells, she was trying to get a DNA test and the authorities weren't really very helpful. She also says that NamUs wasn't very helpful or responsive, which I personally find a little difficult to believe because I've dealt with NamUs on several occasions, and they get back to me very, very quickly. As a matter of fact, I even reached out to them about this case, but we'll get back to that later. So she says that the authorities, at least the police officers that she was reaching out to try to get DNA tested, were telling her that they don't have the funds to do that. And then at one point she was saying that she would even pay for it herself, but they wouldn't allow that to occur. So if that stuff is indeed true, I could totally understand, and I would be absolutely terribly frustrated if I was trying to prove my identity and running into those types of roadblocks. What I am curious about in terms of the pictures that were provided to Nancy, supposedly of Etan and Kurt, is if Nancy tried running a Google reverse image search on those pictures. The only thing that I find odd about those pictures are we don't have a picture of the children together. So there's nothing really tying any of these photos to the other photos. They could be pictures of children taken at different places. Obviously, the time frame looks right, so they're going to be pictures from the 70s or 80s. But is it really that hard to find 3 pictures of kids that look like missing children that are from the right era? I personally don't think so. And that's why I don't know if Nancy did, but I didn't see any mention of it. If she would run a reverse image search on those images and see if they were posted at any other place, possibly with the person's identity, that might help to, actually it could help in either direction. It could help support the story or it could help debunk it, but I'm not sure if that was ever done. Also, the big thing, if that is a picture of her as a child, we still don't have a picture of her with either of the boys, one of the boys, together with the boys. It is just all the 3 pictures are completely separate. I did hear one mentioned by Nancy in one of the videos that the background looks similar in 2 of the photos. In the photos I'm seeing, I'm not really able to confirm that, but there might be some additional information there that just didn't come across clear in the videos. Also, let's see, she says at 21:30 in the first video, we finally get to some type of motive. And that's one of the things that was really frustrating me as I was watching these videos was the questions that Nancy was going for weren't very difficult questions. They weren't digging very deep. I think Nancy is very good at what she does in terms of helping to find missing people, but in terms of journalism and possibly being critical with information that people are giving you so that you can test it and see if it really holds up or not, I didn't find her to be particularly strong. When it came to the motive of why these children were kidnapped in the first place, the only thing we really get is in the first video where Michele says, they tried worshiping me to the devil. They tried, but our Lord wasn't having that. Now, I think she's trying to say that maybe they were trying to sacrifice her to the devil or something. She goes into that event. She talks about it a little bit, and she says that basically she was put in the middle of a pentagram and candles were lit all around her, but the candles all blew out, and then the light kicked on, and the man that was over her with the knife all of a sudden had disappeared, and then she got up and she walked downstairs. It's really not very compelling to hear those types of details and to try to make that match up with this lifestyle that she's described of these kids that are having to raise themselves because the two parents aren't really at home all that much. I mean, if you're going to be using kids for satanic worship and stuff like that, aren't you going to be a bit tougher about how you keep them locked up, make sure that they're not talking to anyone? I don't know. I really have some difficulty with that information. At about 31 minutes and 11 seconds, we start getting a very interesting story about why she wouldn't be a perfect match to the physical description that was left. And that is that her outie belly button, which was noted on the profile, had been surgically removed. Now, I don't think that that's an impossible story. I looked into it a little bit. It doesn't seem like it's a very common procedure. It's kind of, I don't know if it's considered plastic surgery or not, but I don't think it's something that like a general practitioner would do. And from what I see looking into it nowadays, it costs a few $1,000s. So the big question I have is, one of the other identifying marks is a mole that is on her face. It would be very, very easy and relatively inexpensive to remove the mole, but apparently she still has that. But they spent thousands of dollars to remove another mark that really, is it all that identifiable? I mean, she's wearing clothes most of the time. Most of the time people aren't even going to see it. I don't know. Just once again, the logic of what's going on here is giving me some trouble. She does describe a situation in which she tried to get her medical records, but apparently she doesn't have a copy of those yet. And of course, those medical records would help prove that she did indeed get this procedure. Now, towards the end of the first video, at about 55 minutes and 30 seconds, we get some talk about a GoFundMe. And specifically, they're saying there is no GoFundMe. This isn't about money. She specifically says, I don't want no money. She just wants the DNA testing done. So by the time you get to the end of that first video, even if you have trouble with the stories that are going on, if nothing else, I personally came away with the conclusion that this is a woman that has undergone some recent trauma. Obviously, this is a pretty bad car accident that she was in. Her brain seems to be giving her some signals or some messages, and she has associated that to this case. Or this is a woman that was in a car crash and all of a sudden her repressed memories are coming back. I can't really tell one way or the other. I have some trouble with the logic of the story, but nothing that can really completely shutter it for me, or nothing that makes me say, well, obviously she's lying. I think the hardest thing in this first video is the fact that she keeps calling Etan Ethan. And quite honestly, I don't know if it's really in her best interest to even be mentioning the other two kids that are missing that are with her yet, unless you're trying to make this some type of fantastic story so that it will be internet newsworthy and trying to gain attention that way. I think if those elements weren't in this story, I would have very few doubts, and I would be really pushing for, hey, get this woman DNA tested and get this figured out. At least as of the end of the first video, especially with her insistence that there is no GoFundMe and she's not looking for money. And this video was posted back in June of 2017. So know that this is pretty recent. Apparently she's been trying for a year to get this DNA test, but her actually collaborating with Missing in America only started back in June or maybe in late May. Now, video number 2 is almost like a Q&A session following up on video number 1. It might be within a matter of days of video number 1. A couple of new details come out. She mentions that she remembers specifically being at Goose Island Trail. Now, I checked on Google Maps. I did a little looking into that area, and Goose Island Trail is actually only about 1 mile north of Moab. But it does sit directly on the Colorado River, and one of the theories is that Jennifer had actually fallen into the Colorado River. So is that really where the campground was or not? I think there's a good chance it was, but I don't know why there's this discrepancy about the campground being 10 miles north when that area is only a mile north. Once again, we get several mentions. There is no GoFundMe. No one is asking for any money. They also start mentioning, when asked about are the FBI involved, that they can't comment because the case is now in the right hands. I believe that might mean that the FBI is involved, but of course that is certainly not an affirmative confirmation. And then at 39 minutes and 20 seconds in this video, a very interesting conversation happens where Nancy lets her know, Michele, that NamUs has actually now agreed to pay for the testing and to have it done. And Michele says, well, I don't want to work with NamUs because they didn't want to help me in my time of need. I don't know why you wouldn't take that opportunity. I mean, isn't part of everything that you're going through here in terms of trying to come public with this information and raise exposure to it to get people to do the right thing? Now you have NamUs saying they're going to do the right thing, and you say, I don't want to work with them. I don't want to let them do that. I found that extremely suspicious. It doesn't jive with his whole mindset that, hey, the only thing I'm pushing for is DNA testing, but now I'm going to let essentially, petty spite stop that from happening. But hey, by the way, I'm not asking for a GoFundMe. I'm not trying to ask for any money. One of the things I always try to do when I'm looking into information put out by other people is to try to understand their core intent. And I'm really, really struggling with her intent here. This video also published in June. So like I mentioned, that was just a few days after that video. Now a month goes by, and then we get video number 3, where a very interesting development has happened. She has been contacted by, she refers to him as the Springfield Police. I believe she is living in Indiana. But she gets contacted by her local police department, and they say, we're bringing you in for a DNA test. So apparently all the noise made primarily on Facebook, but these videos are also, they're getting decent views on YouTube, but apparently on Facebook Live, they had like thousands and thousands of viewers. Apparently all that attention has finally nudged the police departments to step up and to do their thing. So this video is her announcing that she is literally leaving. She's getting in the car and she is driving to the police department to get her DNA test done. And she does seem pretty happy about that. This video is posted July 11th of 2017. Now, between that and the 4th and final video, all of a sudden we do get a GoFundMe that is started, and it is called Help Michele Hooper Stay Safe. I think it's been updated with the information from the 4th video that just came out yesterday, but it states, Michele Hooper has been identified as missing child Jennifer Klein. Please help me by helping Jennifer Klein in whatever she may need in the near future. She has already been through enough, and I already feel like I have known her a long time. She is a good, honest person, and I would like to help her in whatever she may need. God bless. And that brings us to the 4th video, and the one that started all this initial controversy today and possibly got that thread shut down on Web Sleuths. I guess we should let her say it for herself and see what you guys think.
Explain what happened today.
Well, I get a phone call saying I needed to come to the Springfield Police Department. So I go down there and I talk to the FBI guys, and they got a message that from Utah. I'm 100% matched for Jennifer.
Michele Hooper is Jennifer Klein.
I told y'all.
Everybody, Kimberly's like, I knew it. I believed you. Listen, her GoFundMe is still on the page, and I want everyone to still consider to donate to it.
So first of all, I want to give a very quick shout out to Pumpkin Donut Guy, who sent me the link to this specific video, and we had a little chat about it on Twitter this morning. The big problem I have with this video, and once again, I've watched all these videos all the way through, there is no independent information to corroborate this story. Nancy is saying it's true, but she's not telling us, her audience, why she thinks it is true outside of the fact that she is being told this by Michele. And then they kind of go on having these jokes about, well, now I can't call you Michele, I have to call you Jennifer. And how does it feel to find out that you're actually older than you thought you were? I'm really struggling with this one, guys, because I think that there is a chance that this might have happened. I think there's a chance the FBI could have contacted her and relayed this information to her. But I have a really big problem with this whole story, and it's not just because of the GoFundMe thing, although I thought it was kind of interesting how that mention for the GoFundMe happened, seconds after she announced that the DNA test results came back. Here's the big problem I have with this story. I'm going to rerun this search just to make sure it's absolutely current, because I've been looking all day for any news about this case in terms of media, and I cannot find a thing. I find plenty of threads where people are talking about it, all kinds of different discussion groups here and there. Of course, the Facebook videos, the YouTube videos, but outside of just general social media, I cannot find one legit news source. There's only one story here. It's from the Salt Lake Tribune, and it's from back in January of 2010 that mentions Jennifer Klein. But outside of that, none of these stories talk about her at all, and nothing about this recent development. So when Pumpkin Donut Guy told me about this morning and I came and looked into this, I thought, well, first thing I'll do is I'll take a look at NamUs, because I've seen cases closed and I see how fast NamUs takes down those profiles. I don't think they delete them, but they essentially make them not viewable to the public. And it happens literally within an hour or two of these big breaks happening in these cases. They're really on top of that at NamUs. Her profile, you guys saw it. It's still up at NamUs. It still says that she's missing. I went one farther than that. I know a couple of people at NamUs now. I reached out to them. And once again, to support the fact that I said earlier, I had a reply from NamUs, I think within 20 minutes of my email. And they specifically said, let me pull it up so I can read it to you word for word. We have not been notified of an identification at this point. Now, is that enough for me? Not quite, because I'm still thinking, well, okay, what if this results, the FBI just found out about it. Maybe they haven't disseminated the information yet. But then I'm trying to think, when I've seen this happen in other cases, the FBI, there'll be a press release that comes out. And that press release will be very plain about what their discovery is. And then I don't know if that press release is the trigger that notifies the local departments, but somehow the police department needs to get notified that this case is closed, right? So I went back to that NamUs profile. I looked up the contact information for the Moab Police Department. I looked up the specific detective. I called myself. That detective was not in the office. However, the person I spoke to was very aware of the case. I asked, first of all, is this case still open? She said, yes, it is absolutely still open. I asked, has any identification been made? She said, no, an identification has not been made, though they are aware of the YouTube videos, and they did acknowledge that a DNA test was indeed underway. So where does that leave me? Like I said at the beginning of this video, we are either in the quiet before the storm of a major news media story that is going to possibly undo a conviction for someone sitting in jail right now, as well as solve up to 3 missing person cases all in one blow, or we're in the quiet before the storm before we find out that this is, as I described, a social media car crash. Someone that is trying to potentially gain funds working the sympathy of others using the names of several missing children. And quite honestly, guys, I don't know where it's at right now. I'm just sitting in the middle of this. I don't know which way to go. I have a lot of hard questions about the information that's presented. I don't feel like that story fits together very well, at least the way it's told. But I have to admit, I don't think I see Nancy necessarily as a journalist or that type of media person. So is it possibly just a combination of the wrong types of questions being asked and things not fleshed out in a kind of natural way? I don't know. Or do we have something else going on here? Do we have Nancy possibly being manipulated by someone that just kind of caught her attention and was able to manipulate her? I mean, this would have to be an extremely talented liar. That's the best way that I could put it. Like I said, I listened to every single minute. I was fact checking all over the place, looking for any tiny discrepancy to relay to you guys. The only thing I can say is most of the information that Michele talks about is publicly accessible. In that small bit of information I gave you at the start of the episode, the details that she echoes fit all of that perfectly. Additional details that she talks about, like what the interior color of the car was that she was abducted in, those can be completely fictionalized because nobody knows any different. There is no one to say that it wasn't a tan interior that she was abducted in because the abductors probably aren't going to be talking about it. And if she's not truly Jennifer, Jennifer might have died in the river. Jennifer is, at least her whereabouts are unknown. She's not going to openly talk about it. So there is this big wall in the story that you can think of where you have the known facts that you can get primarily from reading the Charley Project page. And then you have the facts that no one would know where you could embellish them. You could point back to your own childhood experience, recall memories from there, but associate it to people. Oh, I remember my mother. I remember what she was like, and she used to joke with me in this way. Those could be completely fictionalized because there's no way to fact check them. And I feel like the way this information has come out, I can feel that wall of, I got to keep these facts straight, but these over here we can kind of play with. Despite all that, usually in this area where people are playing with the information, they will forget and they will make mistakes. And I could not find any mistakes in this. So this is where I turn it over to you, brain scratchers. In the description box below, we will have links to all the videos. I'm going to include links to the missing person cases that are still active, and I'll also throw the Wikipedia for the Etan Patz case down there just in case you don't remember about that. I'll also put a link to the Case Cracked episode on that case down there as well, which we may have to undo if this information is accurate and if they can now convince this guy that he really is Etan, if that's really what's going on here. In any case, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a substantial update to this. I just don't know which way it's going to go. But why don't you tell me what you think in the comments below? Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of BrainScratch Searchlight. I wish each and every one of you a great day. I hope you and your family stay safe, and I'll see you right back here on the Lord and Arts channel.